Back to Miller. Oh, my goodness.
Herbert.
Sidearm sling, and it's a touchdown.
Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, good spin move by Filipowski for the news. Give him 9.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, joined alongside the Beef Up Front gambling expert, Pat Mattes, for our second annual show here. We'll be going through some NFL future bets that we like for the upcoming season. We got a nice mix of some win totals, some division parlays, some player props, so we're kind of hitting on them all. I'll be going through 5. Pat, you'll be going through 5, and then we each have a dark horse play that we like as well. But welcome back to the show, Pat, and how are we?
Thanks, I appreciate it. I'm glad to have my annual appearance for the thing I love about the football season the most. So I'm looking forward to trying to do better than last year, and we'll see if we can do that.
Yeah, so last year was a pretty strong year for our show that we did. We both went 3 out of 5 on our bets. So our picks for last year, 3 out of 5. And then we each had a dark horse as well. Mine came up just short. Yours was a little bit more far-fetched. But just to recap real quick, I had Justin Herbert to an MVP. That did not hit. I had a Bucs-Bills division parlay winner. That was a winner. Bears under 6.5 wins. I smashed that. The Bears were the worst team in the NFL last year. Vikings over 9.5 wins. Smashed that. They had 13. And then my last one that did not hit was DeAndre Swift over 850.5 rushing yards. My big thing with him last year was, would he stay healthy? And he did not yet again. So 3 out of 5 there. And then my dark horse I said almost hit was the 49ers to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,600. I had a lot of faith going into last year in Trey Lance, but it ultimately wound up being Brock Purdy at the end of the day. But they lost to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. So 3 out of 5 on the main plays. It was a winning year right there. Pat, your plays were Josh Allen MVP did not hit. Chargers and Ravens both to make the playoffs. That hit. Seahawks under 5.5 wins was a miss there. Seahawks were one of the surprise teams last year. Commanders under 8.5 wins just hit there. I think you said they were 8-1.
Got saved by the tie.
Yep. And then AJ Brown over 1,000.5 receiving yards. That smashed as well. He was one of probably the top 5 receivers in the NFL last year. And then your dark horse play last year was Sky Moore, rookie of the year plus 1,200. He didn't really have much of a role in the offense till we got later on in the season, and eventually wound up scoring one of the key touchdowns in the Super Bowl. But that's besides the point, but a pretty good year 1 and looking forward to getting into year 2. So do you want to kick us off with your first play? And I see it's a win total, and I like this one as well.
Yes, it is a win total. I have the Bucs under 6.5 season wins at minus 140 on DraftKings. Really, they're in arguably the worst division in football coming into this year. I really don't see them picking up 7 wins on their schedule. They'll probably get mediocre quarterback play at best from, I believe Baker's been named the starter now, but for a while there it was up in the air between him and Trask. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, they're aging. They don't really have much going on in that offense that's proven other than them. They couldn't even figure out their depth chart a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw the graphic. It said Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask on their depth chart. So obviously some internal struggles there, figuring out how they're going to move forward. But, really after one of the more dominant Super Bowl performances in recent memory by the Bucs over the Chiefs a couple of years ago, I think they're going to turn around and do a complete 180 this season. I got them going under 6.5.
Yeah, the one thing I'm a little bit weary about with that is what you were saying about arguably the worst division in football. They could, potentially sneak a few games in there and maybe get to that 7 wins. But I'm not confident in a Baker Mayfield-led team, and all reports out of training camp were that he did not look sharp at all. The weapons in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin will certainly help, but Baker needed pretty much all of training camp to beat out Kyle Trask, and Kyle Trask was viewed as a super high reach when he was selected in the second round there by the Bucs. So yep. I don't think they're going in the right direction, and I think they actually are in a position where, all right, let's go out there and play Baker this year and kind of hope that he sucks. I think that might be actually the direction of this team and get maybe 2 to 3 wins and put us in position for, either Caleb Williams or Drake May next year. So I do like that under there at the end of the day. I'll be going with an under win total as well for my first play. Going to keep it short and simple with this one. The Arizona Cardinals at under 4.5 wins at minus 120. They're just simply the worst roster in the NFL. They're going to have Colt McCoy most likely playing quarterback for the whole year. And if Kyler is able to come back at some point, he gives them a chance to win some games. So if he is back in the lineup, that will scare me a little bit if you are placing this under 4.5. Because he can just go out there and play some backyard football at the end of the day. He doesn't really need the most talent in the world because he can just run around and just make things happen out of thin air sometimes. But if he's not able to return or cleared fully till like the first week of December, and this team's like 1-11 or so, I don't think the Cardinals with a new head coach and a new GM are going to rush him back, whether they believe he's their long-term quarterback or not. If Kyler does come back in the lineup, he could either A, get hurt and ruin their chance of getting draft capital for him, or B, potentially win a few games and jeopardize the chance to have the first pick where they can decide whatever they want to do with it, whether it is Caleb Williams or sticking with Kyler Murray. So Jonathan Gannon, from what we saw at the end of his tenure with the Eagles and as well as his social media interactions that I'm sure we've seen with the Cardinals, he's a bit of a clown too. So I'm not really a believer in him as a head coach. I think the Cardinals are going to be terrible this year. There's not a real unit on the team that I think you can point to and be like, all right, that's a strength. I mean, they lost DeAndre Hopkins. Look at Budda Baker. He's one of the better safeties, but at cornerback, they don't really have much back there. So this is a Cardinals team that is going to really, really struggle this year. So I really love the under 4.5 on them. All right, next play, Pat. What do you want to give us? Your second bet of your 5?
Yeah, I have a division parlay going for some value here. So we might not come up as strong with the record next year. Maybe not go, better than 3-5 with this pick, but I have the Saints and the Vikings both to win their divisions respectively at plus 728 in a parlay. That's a good amount of value there just for a 2-team division parlay. So I'll just kind of get into my reasoning. Like I said, this is one of my hotter takes that I have for this year. I think the Saints win that division at plus 130. They're barely going to edge out the Falcons at 9-8. And I have the Falcons going 8-9, coming up one game short. It would be nice if both of these teams beat up on the Bucks for my under 6.5 wins Buck play. But, outside of that, I really think Derek Carr is getting a little bit less of recognition than he should, just because of the past and, the rosters he's had there at the Raiders. But, this roster doesn't really catch your eye like some of the others do. It's not your typical, powerhouse division winner. But, Olave and, Michael Thomas, assuming they're both in good health, should be more than enough at wide receiver. They're getting Kamara back after the third game of the season, I believe, from the suspension. And the first 3 games of their season without Kamara are the Panthers, Bucks, and Texans. So that might be able to, they might be able to sneak out a 2-1 or maybe even 3-0 right then. And they really just have some veteran guys that can anchor their defense as well. Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore. So hoping they can win that division. It might not be by a big margin, but plus 130, I'm taking them. And then, as for the Vikings, I'm really not bought into all the Lions hype at the moment. With Aaron Rodgers gone, this is really just a 2-team race for the NFC North, in my opinion. The NFL is a lot more fun when the Lions are good, for sure, but I think that the hype has gotten to them too quickly. And for the Lions to be favored to win at plus 145 and, the Vikings at plus 260 coming off a 13-4 season, I think that's outrageous in terms of a betting perspective. So, both defenses are fairly bad. Neither probably ranks even inside the top 20. So I know both of them were part of a lot of high-scoring games last year. So if we just look at the offensive side of the ball, I think the Vikings take it with, non-primetime Kirk Cousins being sort of underrated. They have the reigning AP Offensive Player of the Year in Justin Jefferson. They have Jordan Addison coming in, and they also have top 5 tight end in Hawkinson. Not to knock the Lions or anything, but I just can't see them making the rebuild that quickly, and that's why I'm taking the Vikings along with the Saints to get to plus 728.
Yeah, plus 728. It's pretty insane, and it's not like you're really dumpster diving on either of those teams. As we touched on, NFC South, it's probably the weakest division, and then like you're saying, the Lions might have been anointed just a little bit too soon. Like they didn't even wind up making the playoffs last year. And that Vikings team, like you said, 13-4. They did have some pretty crazy wins, a pretty crazy record. I forget exactly what it was in one-score games. I think they might have been 11-1 in games decided by 8 or less points. But this is still a team that went to the playoffs last year, and a Saints team that's probably the most talented team in that division. So I have both of those teams finishing second in their division, so I don't have them winning it. But at plus 728, I think that's certainly, if you believe both of those teams will win the division, worth a stab on the betting market for sure.
Definitely worth a shot.
All right, my second play, I will have a division parlay as well, a little bit more simple. Mine is the two teams that played in the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles and the Chiefs, both to win their division, is at plus 179. Pretty simply, I think they're both the two best teams in the NFL, and I think that they're going to win their division. I mean, the Chiefs have won their division every year since 2016, and it's becoming almost to the point where you have to lock them in, I think, for the AFC West every single year until they prove otherwise. Kind of like the Patriots used to be. It just used to be, all right, AFC East belongs to the Patriots as long as Tom Brady's there. Now it's the AFC West belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs as long as Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is there. It just seems like a lock every single year until proven otherwise. And the Eagles might have had the best roster in the NFL last year, and I don't think it's crazy to say that they might be even better this year. I expect Hurts to take another leap this year in his third full year as a starting quarterback. And I think he is the difference maker between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I think roster-wise, they can kind of go neck and neck with each other at some categories, but I'm taking Jalen Hurts every single day over Dak Prescott, and I think that's the major difference. No NFC East team, though, has won the division back-to-back years since 2003, 2004, so that's certainly worrisome, but the trend has to break eventually. So I think in Eagles, Chiefs, the best two teams arguably in the NFL, both to win the division, at plus money there, I think it's a pretty good play. So give me that for bet number 2.
And now that I think about it, I wonder, there's got to be a stat out there. What are the odds, the two teams that faced off in the Super Bowl won their divisions the next year? There's got to be some sort of stat out there. So it'd be interesting to look that up. But yeah, I remember last year preseason, obviously you had Herbert, I had Josh Allen as MVP. We discounted Mahomes. A lot of the NFL analysts were, providing a lot of hype around Herbert, around Russell Wilson coming into the division. So we kind of, put the Chiefs on a back seat there just because it was a fun take to have now that they had some competition. But they've proven time and time again that, they're both different, both at quarterback position and head coach. So no matter who's there on that roster, they're going to be competitive for sure.
All right, number 3 bet. What do you got for us, Pat?
I have the Raiders over 6.5 wins at plus 110 on DraftKings. This was just a gut feeling for me, to be honest with you. They don't have a complete roster for sure. Again, one of the worst defenses in the league. But, if they can put something together with, the new additions of Jimmy G and Jacoby Myers, who, if you remember, actually won them a game last year, not being on the team, along with Hunter Renfrow and a top 5 wide receiver in Devonte Adams, obviously, they can make some noise on the offensive side of the ball. As for the defensive side, not so sure, but I did take a look at their schedule. They always play the Chiefs hard. We know that they might be good for one win there, if not the Chargers. And, they have a couple other games against not so good teams. So we'll see how they turn out. But, I always watch Raiders games with my dad. He's a fan. So we'll be able to see if they can actually put something together or if it's just a cursed organization.
Yeah, I have them winning 8 games this year, going 8-9. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go over that number as well and at plus money. And when that offense is healthy, when you have Devonte Adams, a top 5 receiver, and Josh Jacobs, a top 5 running back, and then when Jimmy G plays, he wins. I mean, it sounds stupid. He's not the most talented quarterback. He's certainly not one of the top 10 guys in the league. But if you look at the 49ers, while he's been the quarterback, or even when he was with the Patriots, when he just played games and he was able to make it through fully healthy, they found ways to win. So I wouldn't rule out another strong winning season, potentially even like a 9-8 and sneak in to that 7 spot in the playoffs. But he does have to stay healthy. That's been the big thing with him over the course of his career. All right, my third bet. I'm going to go to the NFC North, and I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to go under 9.5 wins at plus 100. First off, I do have the Lions winning the division, but I only have them winning the division with a 9-8 record, so I have them just going under those 9.5 wins. When you look at or think about the teams in our lifetime, Pat, that have been just notoriously bad franchises, the three teams that come to mind the most are the Lions, the Jets, and the Browns. And now we're going into the year where they're all kind of hyped up. They all have playoff expectations, but they all have history of just being terrible franchises. Are they able to shake away from that? I think that still remains to be seen. Your roster can be great, but I need to see you go out on the field and prove it. I mean, the Lions got off to a really slow start last year and picked it up over the second half of the season. Certainly have a lot of momentum heading into this year. Hell, the NFL even put them on the first game of the season on Thursday Night Football. I think that's how much they think of them. But you still have to go out there and kind of change the stigma of the past years of your franchise. This is the crazy stat to me that the reason why I'm riding with the Lions under 9.5. The Lions have only gone over 9.5 wins twice since 2000. So that's pretty insane in the past 22 years. And I know they have an extra game on the schedule now with the 17 games. So I went back and did that math as well. They only have 6 seasons since 2000 where they have won 9 games or more. So historically, the under is very favorable here with this franchise. And while I agree that the roster is probably as strong as it's been since Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford were there, and Goff has looked better with Detroit than expected, he's still an average quarterback. And I think I'm just going to side with history here and live with the Lions winning 10 games. If they go out there and win 10 games, prove me wrong, so be it. But I'd rather be on the right side of history. I also have the Jets under 9.5 wins as well. It's another thing. Just it's a wait and see for me. It's like you can be hyped up all you want. You still have to go out on the field and prove that you're going to be a successful team on the football field. So I'm going Lions under 9.5 at plus money. I still have them winning the division, sneaking in with a 9-8 record, but getting the double-digit wins has been so rare. 10 times or only 2 times in the past 22 years. So Lions under 9.5 there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so you're banking on the NFC North being one under 10 wins. So we'll see how that plays out, and hopefully the Vikings win it for me and my betting purposes. But like you said, Jared Goff is still average. They do have an entirely new running back room this year. Obviously, Swift went over to the Eagles, and Montgomery came in from the Bears, and they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft. So, a lot of question marks in the running back room. Jameson Williams is suspended for 6 games, so I guess we'll see how that offense shakes out. But I'm with you on that one. I didn't make it as one of my picks, obviously, but yeah, I'm in on the under as well.
All right, bet number 4. What do you have for us here, Pat?
This is one of my more confident ones that I placed. I have Chris Olave over 1,025.5 receiving yards at minus 112 on FanDuel. Everybody always wants to talk about the second-year jump for wide receivers, and I really think Chris Olave really just continues on that trend. He eclipsed 1,000 yards in his rookie season last year, and they do have that extra game, but he only did it in 15 games. And his quarterback was Andy Dalton. He's getting an upgrade there with Derek Carr. And really Derek Carr loves his number 1 wide receivers historically, and Olave also has a full year of NFL experience under his belt. So I think we're starting to see the takeover of those young Ohio State wide receivers as of right now. So I'm all over Olave on the betting front as well as fantasy this year, and taking his over there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add in as well. It just seems like more and more when we're talking about some of these top NFL receivers, we're just starting to look at Ohio State guys year in and year out now. I mean, even next year's draft, the top guy is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. So Ohio State has really emerged as wide receiver U and taken over the league. I am interested to see the Derek Carr transition. It's just always, I think, a bit of an adjustment period when you're going to a new team from where you've been forever. I know guys were constantly rotating in with him in the Raiders and new faces in new places, but now he's going to a completely new stop. Let's see if he's able to kind of carry over some of the success that he's had with the Raiders. But if he is going to, Chris Olave will be a major part. I am interested to see the role that Michael Thomas has, because rumor has it he's finally healthy, and when he was healthy. He was racking up like 100, I think like 130, 140 catches the last time he played a full season. So remains to be seen how big of a role he plays and if that impacts kind of the targets that Olave sees. But I am excited to see what he brings to the table in year 2. All right, bet number 4 for me. I'm going to go with a young wide receiver as well, and this one resides in Philadelphia. I'm going with DeVonta Smith over 975.5 receiving yards. That's at minus 115. I said this before on the podcast, but I think if DeVonta Smith wasn't on the Eagles, he would already be in that top 10, like top 5 potential convo of the top receivers in the league. He just gets overshadowed sometimes by all the weapons that the Eagles offense has. When you look at A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, last year in the running game with Miles Sanders doing a lot of work as well. Jalen Hurts doing all the work that he does on the ground. It's just such a loaded and stacked offense at every spot. It's kind of hard for him to put up Justin Jefferson type numbers. I'm not saying he would if he was in a Justin Jefferson situation, but I don't think like 110 catches for 1,500 yards would be out of the question if he was the unquestioned number 1 receiver on any other team in the league. But he still found his way last year with all that talent around him to 1,196 receiving yards. So he easily cleared that 975.5 number. And that was with Jalen Hurts missing a couple games as well. And the Eagles also possessing one of the more dynamic rushing offenses in the league. And I don't think this offense is going to suddenly become more pass heavy. They're going to use that offensive line to run the football, and Jalen Hurts will use his legs. That's what makes him so special at most times. His talent, though, DeVonta Smith, is insane. And as long as he's with A.J. Brown, he might not ever get the national attention of being the guy or the top receiver. But Darius Slay said at training camp he doesn't think it's long till DeVonta Smith is viewed as the best receiver in the NFL. So coming from Darius Slay, that's some pretty high praise. I think as long as he stays healthy, he clears 1,000 yards easily. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him lead the Eagles in receiving yards this year, get up there to like a 1,300, 1,400 yard season. Very special talent, and I'm really excited to see him grow again in year 3.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I'm not going to take the under on one of our Eagles receivers, but it'll be interesting to see the target share if it changes at all. Obviously, we are, getting more of a pass-heavy running back coming in with DeAndre Swift. So it'll, Miles Sanders didn't do too much receiving. So we definitely have more dynamic backfield in terms of, receiving. But yeah, I like it. I hope he continues to take another step, and we'll see if he can get to 1,000 again.
All right, your 5th and final bet that you're locking in before your dark horse play. What's this one, Patrick?
My 5th one, I was looking at Saquon's yards, but I thought it would be too risky to take a running back, especially with his history. So I'm actually going back to the drawing board. I'm going back to Justin Herbert, over 4,425 passing yards. So here we are again, talking about Justin Herbert in the preseason. In this offense, they throw the ball like nobody's business, and I really think he's poised to hit the over pretty easily here. They added some extra help at wide receiver, some young help with Quentin Johnson, and they still have arguably the best pass-catching running back in Austin Eckler. As long as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams stay healthy for most of the season, I'm not even going to chalk them up to either one of them to play all 17 games. But as long as they stay healthy for most of the season, Herbert should crush that number. The only year he didn't hit that number was in his rookie year, and that was before the extra regular season game, and he only missed it by 90 yards. So, he got over 5,000 in 2021, threw for almost 4,800 last year, even with some injury concern, if you remember, with that rib. So I don't see this being too tough to get. I'm not sure. Well, I am sure that Vegas knows something that I don't know, but it seems kind of low in my ballpark. So if this doesn't hit, I really think it's time for me to be out on Herbert.
And I think year 1 as well, Justin Herbert did not start the first game either. So one less start in the fold too. But yeah, my thoughts on him. I think he's the most talented thrower of the football. I'm not going to say the best quarterback, but most talented thrower of the football in the NFL. And this year, I think his passing yardage is going to increase even more because they brought in Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. And we saw all the downfield throws that they ran with Dak Prescott in Dallas. Now with a much more talented thrower of the football in Justin Herbert, and he's now out of an offense ran by Joe Lombardi that was really predicated on short kind of intermediate throws, and that's why Austin Eckler did so much damage over the past few years. This year, they're really, I think, going to air it out. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, 3 very, very talented receivers. Let's see what those guys can do and bring to the table. But I love that play as well, Pat, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get to that 5,000-yard mark. All right, my 5th and final bet of our locks, I guess we're calling them before we get into our dark horse. I'm going to go. Been talking about the Lions a lot, I feel like, in this podcast, but I'm going to go with a positive Lions spin in this one. I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown over 90 and 95.5 receptions at -110. Through 2 years in the league, Amon-Ra St. Brown is averaging 98 catches per year. That's 90 in his first year and 106 in year 2. And last year, he also missed 1 game due to injury. Jameson Williams out for the first 6 games, as you touched on, with a suspension. TJ Hawkinson isn't there anymore. He was there for the first half of the season before getting traded to the Lions last year. He is the unquestioned number 1 target in this offense. He's proved to have a great rapport and relationship with Jared Goff out on the field. I just think he's one of, if not the best, possession receiver in the NFL. He's not going to be a big time explosive guy, but he's going to be a player that's getting 8, 9, 10, 11 targets on any given week and bringing in 6, 7, 8 catches, something like that. So I think he's the best possession receiver in the entire NFL, and I think he clears that number of 95.5 catches easily. We see him more so around the 110 marker, I think, by season's end.
Yeah, I'm all over him in fantasy as well. I think, like I said, my pick was Olave, but him and Olave are 2 of the younger receivers that I love that are starting to make a name for themselves. Especially in that hyped up Lions offense. I think he obviously will be the number 1 target. We'll see what he can do in those first 6 games without Jameson Williams, and then when he comes back, I still think he'll be the primary target until Jameson Williams proves himself. So, I agree. I might even take that one with you. So, great pick.
All right, last pick. Your dark horse pick. Both of ours here are over plus 1,000 odds. So this is kind of your long shot. Maybe you sprinkle $10 on it and you get a pretty nice payday by season's end. What are you riding with here, Pat?
Yeah, I was looking around the player awards. Didn't find too much I liked. I didn't want to go against Mahomes on another MVP bet, so decided to go with another category. I'm going with Max Crosby as the league leader in sacks. Stat that doesn't mean too much, but at plus 1,700, Max Crosby is going to be my play here. So this is a guy who gets almost no recognition for how much of an impact he has on the game, in my opinion. I hear few and far between reports about him. So like I said earlier, with my dad being a Raiders fan, I watch some Raiders games with him. Man, does he rush the quarterback well. He is competing with, some of those names like Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt to get that crown. But, I think his name deserves to start being up there with those top pass rushers. He's top 5 in my opinion. And I really do think he has a shot taking home this crown for whatever that's worth. So 17 times your money, but might be some value on the Condor.
Yeah, he's been one of the, since he came in the league, better pass rushers, and I think he's one of those guys that is just getting better because he came out of, I believe it was Eastern Michigan, so this was a guy out of the MAC, and I think he's finally starting to really tapped into his potential. And he's a guy that I think, regardless, plays his ass off, and he plays hard each and every week. So even if the Raiders are at a point where they're 4-10 down the stretch, this is a guy still that's going to be going out there and busting his ass, and he's not going to be dogging it. So I think that is a pretty fun bet that you'll definitely be in the whole season. He should be up in that conversation. But like you said, getting past those guys like Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa or TJ Watt, if all those guys stay healthy, heck, even Hassan Reddick at this point, if he's able to top one of those guys, I think we will really see his name as one of those elite players on the defensive side of the ball. All right, my dark horse play, piggybacking off of my bet number 5, going with the same guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'll go with him for the Offensive Player of the Year at plus 3,500 Like I said, through 2 years in the league, averaging 98 catches per game. No more TJ Hawkinson in the offense, so a full year without him. And then Jamison Williams after the first 6 games, the number one unquestioned target in this offense. I dug up the numbers. Since week 12 of 2021, when he really first started getting the full snaps for the Lions offense, he's put up 157 catches, 1,721 yards, and he's had 213 targets. That's across 22 games. So if we equate that over to a 17-game season, that's 121 catches, 1,329 yards, and 164 targets. So this is one of the most targeted players over a per 17-game season since that week 12 of 2021 when he really first broke out of anyone in the NFL. If you want to compare what those projected numbers are to Justin Jefferson's numbers from last year, 128 catches, 1,809 yards, and he had 8 touchdowns last year and won the Offensive Player of the Year. So only seven catches off, about 500 yards. It's still a dark horse play. It's going to be really hard to find a way to top those numbers. But if he's able to put up 121 catch, 1,329 yards season, he only has 11 touchdowns in his 2 seasons in the NFL. So you'd like to see those numbers maybe up closer to like 7 or 8 touchdowns this season. His name is certainly going to be in there. And especially if the Lions do find a way to tap into this potential and go just say 10-7 or 11-6, and the Vikings do go, 9-8, 8-9 and miss the playoffs, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be getting that buzz and getting that attention. I think he's going to get at least 150 targets this year, and I could see him reeling in about 105 to 110 catches and around that 1,300-yard marker. He's certainly going to be up there in the discussion. So Amon-Ra St. Brown at plus 3,500 Offensive Player of the Year. I think you could certainly use your money in worse places than that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to say about him. We kind of touched on him on the bet number 5, but certainly a lot of value there. And like I said, he's a guy that I'm really high on, especially in fantasy and PPR leagues. So it'll be nice if he gets that much attention in target share, and we'll see where he goes.
All right, well, that will do it for the Beef Up Front podcast annual gambling preseason NFL show, I guess we could call it. Before we head out, Pat, give me your Super Bowl prediction for this year.
Haven't thought about that one, but I in my heart I want to say there's going to be a rematch, and the Eagles are going to win. This is all barring any injury, obviously, but I'm going to go Eagles 31, Chiefs 28, and Hurts gets his first ring. Obviously, it's a little bit of a biased take, but I don't see anybody in the NFC stopping them just like last year. I think they're going to run through it again, and whoever they run into in the Super Bowl, they're just going to have that bad taste in their mouth from last year and kind of get that one out of the way. And probably Kelsey's last year as well. So I don't think Kelsey would have came back if he didn't think they had a shot, and I think they have the best shot in the NFC.
All right, well, that will do it for this edition of the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pixel Media. As always, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we will talk soon.